What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and with me today we've got Dr. John Lewis. John, we're both running on a little bit of sleep, but we're gonna power through it. So I'm glad you could make it, and hope your little guy's doing better.
Thank you so much. I hope you do as well, and look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. So what island are you on?
We are on Oahu.
Oahu, nice. I lived on Maui for Lahaina before it was completely destroyed. So actually, I was only there for about a year. I had a rough go when I was there. It was not a good
Why did you
time for
leave?
me. But oh well, I was on a lot of drugs back at that time. Was not a good portion of my life, and I ended up crashing on a skateboard, and I broke my elbow, and I couldn't work. And as you know, Hawaii is a very expensive place to live. So without work, I couldn't keep my rental. I was like renting rooms at different places and couldn't keep it and just ended up coming back to Northern California. And I moved back in February. So going from like being outside all the time on Maui to being in like 40-degree weather in Northern California in February was a rough transfer.
Absolutely. That's a rude awakening.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Like, you really realize, like, how much different the weather is. I remember coming back, like, I was completely tanned out from I was outside all the time, and, man, it was fun living there, though. Like, I enjoyed the different culture. I had, like, a little Vespa-type scooter, so I was just scooting around all over the place. When I moved there, I had some family that lived there, so I crashed on their couch for a couple of weeks and ended up getting a job at Moose McGillicuddy's in Lahaina doing, like, bar backing and some security work. I wasn't a big guy back then, so me working security was pretty freaking laughable, but it was, like, one of those things where they, it was like, "We like you and you've got a lot of experience, and we don't really have a slot for you right now, but we wanna hire you, so we're just gonna have you do anything we possibly can until we can get you behind the bar." And I never even made it to that point, really. Like, I did a couple of bar shifts before I left, but it was just a nightmare for me. Anyways, tell me about yourself.
Well, much like you, we love the weather here. We're from Miami, and it's kind of the opposite experience regarding weather. Miami, have you been? If you've been to Miami, you know that especially at this time of the year in August, I mean, it's just a pressure cooker. It's just so hot, and the humidity combined with that heat, especially in the evening, I mean, it's just brutal. You don't even want to go outside really unless you absolutely have to. I feel bad for like people that do yard work or roofers or construction people. I mean, those guys, they must sweat, I don't know, gallons of water every day in their job, but it's nice to get away from that. Even though it's hot here, it's just a whole different feeling, as you know, with the trade winds.
Yeah.
And I'm a natural sweater anyway. Like I go outside, I just can easily sweat. But here, I barely sweat unless I'm working out outside. I don't even have the same experience. And I grew up in Tennessee originally. I experienced heat and humidity for the summertime in Tennessee. Of course, it got cold in the winter, but and then I moved to Miami to go to school at the University of Miami, and I lived there for 33 years. But the weather here is just on another level. It's so beautiful. I've been lucky with my work. I've seen a lot of the world, and I've never seen anything as beautiful here with the combination of what I feel like is perfect weather. I mean, if you love snow, I guess Hawaii is not
Yeah.
really for you, but if you like warm weather and getting in the ocean, I mean, to me, this is just it really is paradise to
Yeah,
me.
I
And
was
it's
gonna say the
funny, like
same thing. It's paradise there, man. It's something else. I wish it wasn't
it
so
is.
damn expensive though, right?
No,
But I mean, I guess
uh,
coming from Miami, Miami has to be expensive as hell too. So I
it
guess it's
is.
not that much of a change, I would imagine.
It's not California expensive, but it's certainly up there.
Yeah. Yeah. Being from Northern California, I so when I got hurt, I was working in San Francisco as a bartender and I was making really good money, doing very well. But in San Francisco, like even making six figures. I was making low six figures, I would imagine somewhere in that area. You don't really know for sure because unless you like track all of your tips, like you're doing your best you can to skate the government. So, like based on my YTD, like I was making somewhere in the low six figures area. And that's not great in San Francisco, but it's enough to like rent a room and have a decent life. And like me and my ex-wife were sharing a room there with other people like that we lived in a house with. So it wasn't terrible. And I ended up getting into line work. Took a job in North Dakota. I was making like 14 bucks an hour or 15 bucks an hour, something like that. Not good money at all. But we were working like minimum 12 hours a day. We were doing 14 days on, 5 days off at like minimum. There was times there where I was there for a lot longer than that. So the plan was to like get through my apprenticeship really fast in North Dakota and then just be able to move wherever I want. And journeyman lineman wages are fairly similar in like most big cities around the country. So you can kind of choose to go and work wherever you want. So I got hurt on like 14 bucks an hour and disability wasn't paying me for what I was making in San Francisco. They were paying me for what I was making in North Dakota. So essentially like I had to leave. There was just no way for me to stay in Northern California on that. And at first like I was kind of bitter about it. Like it's like I'm being forced out of my home in a lot of ways because it's so expensive to live here that like there's just no way for it to happen. And at the time, like I moved up here to Idaho in 2015. And at the time, like nobody I knew lived here except for my grandmother, and everybody that I knew was like, "Why are you moving up there? There's nothing there. You don't know anybody." And it was like, "Well, I don't really have a choice, so it's not like I'm, choosing to leave." But turns out, like a lot of the people that told me not to move here are now wanting to move here or live here because California just went to hell and it's so expensive there that like everybody that I know is either getting out or wants to get out. So it ended up being a good move because I got in here at like normal real estate prices before COVID just went and, ran everything up to crazy amounts. So it ended up being a good move for me. Like buying a house here, I paid like half of what it's worth now and, like the way real estate is this house isn't worth what I could sell it for right now. But until there's some like massive real estate correction, which is probably right around the corner, I'm doing pretty well. So I'm happy with it now, and I enjoy living here. My my mother and my aunt both live here now. My aunt was the one I was living with in Lahaina. Her house burned down, and my mother's house burned down in Northern California, which is like insane. How do you I don't know what the odds are. I should probably like ask ChatGPT this, but like, what are the odds that two sisters have both of their houses burned down in different states? It's got to be just
Exactly.
astronomical. But the way things are going right now, like, it's not that far fetched with, the way California is and the way these power companies operate and the way the governments just totally ignore their citizens. And it's, it sure is something.
Is yeah, society today is I don't recognize it in many respects in terms of the way, excuse me, the way it was when I grew up in the 80s. I mean, it's a totally different mentality of the average person today. I don't quite frankly, I don't even in some respects I don't even recognize our country anymore.
No, I agree. Like I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s in Northern California, but like where we were at, we had like 1 foot in the new world and 1 foot in the old world. So I grew up far more similar to like the way you grew up than the way that like kids are growing up today. We didn't have social media or anything like that. Nobody
Right.
had phones really when I was in high school. So like I kind of grew up in like my high school was closer to Dazed and Confused than like a high school that you would go today, like far closer to Dazed and Confused. So it's yeah, I it's really something. So how did you become a doctor? What got you into it and tell me about that?
Well, I've always had a love for education. My mother was a public school teacher for 39 years, and my dad didn't. He wasn't in education, but they both were very. I guess. I mean, it wasn't like I grew up under a dictatorship. my parents were way better than that, but they just were, they expected a lot out of me, I guess, as the firstborn child of two. I have a 5 year younger sister, but so I grew up just actually enjoying education. I mean, I was one of the nerds that liked going to school. I wasn't looking to skip or, be an idiot. I wanted to learn and I wanted to apply myself and I wanted to do well. I didn't really have any specific plans of becoming like a doctor or a scientist or anything like that at a university. That just kind of happened over time. I found that earlier in my life and in my career, I was sort of a bit of a chameleon. Like as I was sort of going through steps in life, depending on the people I was around, I sort of, I could kind of like take on their interests, so to speak, or I could see what other people were doing and think that looks interesting or I like that or whatever, and maybe incorporate that into my own um, sort of journey, if you will. So I didn't really plan it. I mean, I had, for example, my dentist who just recently retired a couple of years ago, he said when he was a little kid, he knew from a very young age he wanted to be a dentist. I wanted to be a zookeeper when I was a really young kid. I loved animals. And so, I had all these different things that I was interested in as a kid that turned out to have nothing to do with what I became professionally. But I got into, I guess, the best way or the best probably anchor. Well, actually, there were a couple. I played sports. My grandfather, that my dad's parents, I stayed with when mom went back to school and when they were at work. I was lucky to have well all four of my grandparents that I knew very well, but especially my dad's parents because they lived in the same neighborhood and my grandfather would pitch baseball to me. I mean, I started actually swinging a bat before I even started school. And so that kind of put me on a path of playing sports and I played sports through high school. And then after high school, I got into drug-free competitive bodybuilding.
Oh,
And
cool.
I really I loved it. I mean, I was a very skinny kid always, and
So was
so it
I.
kind of for me it was one of those probably overcompensation activities that you do. You go, you're skinny, and then you see other guys that are muscular or bigger, and you say, "Well, I don't like being so skinny." And so I started weight training, and my body responded really, really well to it. And then I even took it to the next level of competing in it. But I never was willing to do drugs. I didn't see the opportunity to take bodybuilding to the drug using level because I didn't see at that time any way to really like make a living as a
Yeah.
bodybuilder, and I still don't. I mean, I guess there are a handful of people out there who do it, but they're
Genetic
taking drugs to
genetic
do it. They're
freaks along with drugs, right?
right, exactly, right. But what it did for me really was, in addition to just something that I enjoyed for a few years, it actually changed my entire approach to nutrition. Because up to that point, pretty much like every American that you meet on the street, we're all eating for taste, not for health,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's a pretty common American. That's the reason one of the reasons, in my opinion, we have rampant chronic diseases today of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, neurodegeneration is because we're eating for taste and not for health. And so people are putting their health below their desire to eat a tasty meal. And so bodybuilding for me changed that completely, not because I was thinking about health at that time either. It was more of a performance
Yeah.
perspective, but it certainly completely changed. Like, you're you're training for a purpose, right? And so the biggest part of that experience actually is not the hour to 2 hours you're spending in the gym. It's the other 22 or so hours of the day where you want to program out your diet. And so that's something that I mean, again, even if somebody's taking drugs, I still respect and admire the dedication that it takes to get up on a stage in a competitive form because you can't just take drugs and be a bodybuilder. It still requires a lot of effort and a lot of planning and delayed gratification and a lot of things that again most Americans are just not willing to do. They're too lazy, they don't care, whatever. So I I got into it to that level, and it completely shifted my perspective from just purely eating for taste to eating for a performance perspective. And then, again, as I did it for a couple of years, and I realized, well, I'm not going to make any money doing this. This is just kind of, something to satisfy an ego. It wasn't anything much more than that. Then I began looking more into, as I was studying physiology, I began looking more into, well, how does nutrition affect health? Because again, I hadn't really, up to that point, I hadn't really thought too much about it, even though I had witnessed all four of my grandparents up to, well, three of the four. One was still alive. She died in 2000. She was the last one who died in 2000. But my grandparents, several of my aunts and uncles had died, eating at, like I said, growing up in Tennessee, people eating a very typical standard American diet, a lot of animal food, a lot of fried food, a lot of fatty food, sugar. Still ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, but still ate a lot of questionable things. And so then that was where I shifted, really more from a performance perspective to a health perspective. And I even looked in my own life, like as a kid, I was sick a lot. I had a lot of throat infections. And
Mm.
then of course, retrospectively, it's hard to figure that out, especially as a kid, looking, back on your own life. Well, why did these things happen? And so I blame a lot of that on the standard American diet of too much dairy, too much animal food, just consuming all this dairy all the time. I mean, my dad, for example, didn't think a meal was a meal unless it had to have three components: some piece of meat, typically a beef of some sort, a glass of milk, and a piece of bread. It could have any other combination of beans and vegetables for the most part, but it needed those three things for him to really feel like he had a meal. And so that was the kind of mentality that I had as, of modeling my dad and my family's behavior. But when I shifted my perspective to health, that was where, around the same time as I'm in graduate school and I'm learning about how the body works and cellular physiology and anatomy and all these things, that's where it started really forming my, I would say, the professional part of my journey of getting into nutrition research, and where I've been for the last close to 30 years now, which is hard to believe. I can't believe that
Yeah.
much time has passed. But
Hey,
but
you look young, right? So
well,
you don't
yeah,
look
I mean,
like you've been doing it for 30 years. So
I've been
must be
doing this
doing
for a
something
long
right.
time, even though I don't compete in bodybuilding anymore. I still weight train hard every day. I sprint once a week. I never was much of an alcohol drinker anyway. I drank a little bit in college, but when I started competing in bodybuilding, and I had to make a decision between, hanging out with my buddies at a club till 2 or 3 in the morning and having a drink or two versus not doing that.
Yeah,
The
it
two
destroys you.
lifestyles are not compatible.
Yeah. I can
Never
totally
smoked.
relate to that. Like I was a dirt bike racer when I was a kid. So I got my first dirt bike at 4 years old. And like that was the only thing that like I really cared about growing up. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life, and I ended up, I was a good dirt bike rider, but I like you I was a skinny kid. Like I at when I graduated high school, I was like 6'3", 155 pounds or something like that. And like, I was a talented rider, but I just kinda got my butt kicked in amateur racing throughout my entire I started late, so I didn't have the same, I started riding early, but I didn't start racing till I was, like, 15, so I didn't have the same background as a lot of the kids that started at 4 or 5 years old, and I ended up moving to Southern California when I graduated high school just kinda for fun. Like, I had no thought of, like, racing professionally or anything like that. I wasn't good enough, and I ended up starting to go to the gym every day. It was more to, like, get chicks and, you know, be bigger than to, like, be good on a dirt bike, but it translated really well over to dirt bike riding, and I went from, like, being a novice to an amateur professional within a couple of months, really, like, a short period of time, and it was all, like, just having more strength and being able to, like, manhandle the bike, but still had a terrible diet. Like, back then, like you said, this was in 2005-ish. And, like, everybody that I ate pretty good as a kid, like, we ate a lot of meat, I still eat a lot of meat, but, like, we we didn't eat a ton of fast food and didn't go out to eat a lot, it was a lot of just meat and potatoes and stuff like that, but, it wasn't great, and I ended up when I got hurt, I went through a couple of really bad years where I ended up losing a ton of weight, and I was down to, like, 120 something pounds, and doctors really couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Like, they just had no idea. It was, like, wasting away essentially, and they thought I was gonna die. They were doing all sorts of tests, see if I had cancer, see if I had some sort of, like, blood diseases, and they had no idea what was going on. And finally, like, my psychologist ended up prescribing me an antidepressant that it's called mirtazapine, and one of the side effects from that is weight gain and it worked really well, but at the same time, I also switched from, like, a garbage diet. At the time, like, I had just gotten divorced, I wasn't cooking, I was just eating out, essentially, and I switched over to, like, an all meat diet. I just started making ribeye steaks for dinner every night and instantly put on, like, 30 or 40 pounds, and, like, I've been fairly healthy since then, and, I know I've kind of broadened my diet a little bit more since then. I don't eat just steak every night, but I eat a lot of, like, vegetables now, in the last year or so, and most of that was from digestive problems that I was just kinda, like, had to jumpstart the digestion, but it's really something, like, seeing what normal Americans eat every day. Like, now being off of all of that garbage, I, like, can't even really eat fast food. If I go to McDonald's, like, I'm sick to my stomach. It's like, all I can eat the fries. That's about all I can eat from there, but if I eat one of their burgers or if I go to, like, a Carl's Jr., or something like that, it's just this grease ball that, like, sits in your stomach and just makes you feel like absolute garbage, and then, like, man, you just watch people eat this crap and you go, "There's a better way, just you gotta get off of it." It's like, I think fast food and this garbage food is as addictive as any drug in a lot
No
of
doubt.
ways, right? And, it's sad to see. Like, I just people that I know that eat like that now, I just look at them and I go, "Just you gotta just stop. You gotta kick it. You gotta learn how to cook because a lot of,
Right.
especially men, don't wanna learn how to cook. They have no interest in cooking for themselves, and it's disgusting." Like, I've read before, and this makes a lot of sense, that, like, our current society is the only society in the history of the world where obesity is a sign of poverty. Like every other time in
Right.
history, it was a sign of wealth, and like the
Exactly.
poor people were skinny and couldn't, eat good. That's why they call them the little people in Europe and
Right.
old Europe, is because they didn't have the nutrition and they were smaller than the royalty and the people up top. So that was a long rant about a lot of different stuff, but I'm sure you can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't even I'm as you're talking about fast food, I don't even have I had any fast food? I mean, I'm thinking in like the last 20, 25 years, I might have gone through maybe Wendy's a couple of times and had like which I don't microwave my food, but their microwave baked potato, just a plain baked potato,
Yeah,
just because I had no other alternative on a road trip or something. But McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger
it's
King,
poison.
no, I mean, I haven't gone, I literally haven't spent my money on any of those places. I literally cannot recall the last time.
Yeah, that's great. Like,
It's been that long. And,
I look
and
at
like,
it as poison. It's
yes,
they're literally poisoning you, and they, put all this crap in it to make it taste good, but a lot of it's, like, not even meat. Like, Taco
oh, I
Bell, you
know.
go and you get a steak burrito or something like that, and it's who knows what's in that crap.
Right. Well, like you, I mean, I cook. I mean, I cook for my family. I haven't been as much here in Hawaii. We've had a lady helping us, but like back in Miami, I cooked every day. I cook our dinner, at least our dinner. Breakfast is a little trickier with different schedules, but I would make the family dinner every day, and I cook. I've been cooking for myself. I mean, my grandmother. That was one of the benefits of growing up with my dad's parents. was, learning self-sufficiency, learning to be
Mhm.
clean, neat, organized, I mean, before I was 10 years old, I could do just about anything you could think of in the house, including cooking. So I've enjoyed preparing my own food for a long time. Unfortunately, living in Miami, I didn't have in most of the years I've lived there, I didn't have a yard to have a garden, and even trying to have a garden. I mean, we tried. My wife and I tried a couple of times having like just some basic things like tomatoes,
Yeah.
green beans, okra, and unfortunately, the pests would wipe them out as fast as the tomato flowers would bloom. There was some kind of butterfly that would literally show up, not overnight, but it was so green you couldn't see it. I mean, you had to like,
Yeah.
get your
No, I know what you mean. I've got a big garden and it's tough dealing with the pests. Last year, I had like moles or voles or something like that that just like destroyed everything. But this year I've been good. For some reason, they just didn't show up this year.
well, I don't know what these things are in South Florida because like in Tennessee, my mom's dad, that grandfather, I mean, that guy had the greenest thumb of just about anybody I've ever known. He grew the most amazing tomatoes still to this day of anybody's
Yeah.
I ever tasted. And he never had that kind of pest problem. I don't know what the heck these things are, but they're green worms about that long, and then
Mm,
they turn into some kind of butterfly, but they literally like, and when they're so tiny, they're so green, they literally blend in with the plant. You can't see them.
yeah.
And so you have this beautiful tomato plant with, loaded with flowers, and you go to sleep one night, and the next morning you come out and all your flowers are gone.
Yep. You know, I this is actually kind of a funny story. So like me and my ex-wife went to Maui on vacation at one point, and we at one night we were just like went to the store and bought a bunch of fruit. You know, like fruit's just so fresh there and like we
Right.
go back and we're eating all this fruit and we're like, "Man, we need to buy more fruit." Like when we go back, like this is great. Like and it just feels different because of where you're at and the weather and everything. So we get back to San Francisco and we go and we buy a bunch of fruit and we're like, this stuff tastes like shit. Like, what is wrong with this thing? And I kind of didn't really think much of it. I just like, well, maybe it was the atmosphere that just kind of made everything better. That was my thought. Like, it was just we were on vacation. It was the atmosphere. Things
Right.
just tasted better. Like things were better. And years later, like I just didn't really eat any fruit anymore because it just tastes like shit for the most part. Like you can get a good pineapple and you can get a good banana around here, but everything else just tasted awful. So I like plant a bunch of strawberries in my garden, and the first year they come out, it's like, holy crap, these taste good. Like, what is going on here? So then I like start looking into it, and it's like the strawberries that you buy at the store aren't actually ripe. They pick those things
Right.
green and then they put them into a warehouse and then they dump chemicals on them to force them to be red, but they're not actually ripe.
Mm.
It's frankenfruit. So that was the like that was crazy to me. And then I kind of put together like, oh, this is why people say food tastes better in Europe. So like we have in
Right.
motocross, a lot of Europeans come over here and race, and the thing they all say that is the worst about America is the food. And same thing with tomatoes, same thing with cucumbers. Like everything that I grow in my garden tastes amazing, and when you buy it from the store, it just tastes like water. And
Right.
it was crazy to kind of realize that. And it sucks that like I'm gonna try and set up like a hydroponic system in my kitchen this year for strawberries because I get used to having the strawberries in the summertime,
Yes.
and then winter comes around and I can't get any that are any good, and it sucks.
I agree. It's funny you say that about Europeans. I have the exact same experience. I have people all the time, especially a lot of Europeans that come to Miami, and they'll talk about how bad the food is in the US. It's really sad when you think about what we've done to ourselves.
Yeah,
And like you were commenting earlier about how little the government cares. I don't know, maybe under RFK we'll finally got to start seeing some things change, but it's been going in the wrong direction for decades. And I
yeah,
don't know, there's so much industry dominance in the way the government works. Like, they want to produce this cheap crap because they make so much more money on the cheap crap rather than actually allowing, like you said, allowing a plant to grow to where it's ripe or where the fruit is ripe. And so, breaking down all of that inertia, man,
And
I don't know how we do it.
like, kind of in their defense, and I hate defending these monsters, but, like, it is hard to feed 350,000,000 people,
Right.
and I don't know, like, we would have to radically change our system in order to get
Exactly.
good food, right? So, like, the steaks that I buy them from a local butcher. So when I first started making steaks, like, I was buying them from our Winco, which is just a local, grocery store, which is they have good food. But I'm making these steaks and we end up like going to this butcher and picking up steaks there. And first thing I noticed was the color was different. It was a little bit darker and like it was a little bit like of a darker kind of a blood color compared to like the steak that you buy at the store is kind of like a bright red. And the second thing I noticed is when you cook it, it's smoked less. So it's cleaner. Obviously, that was my thought.
Mhm.
And the taste is better. So it's, like people really need to find local places to buy their food because they do exist, and it sucks that like the government is so corrupt and these businesses are so corrupt that they want these monopolies to exist. Like my neighbor had a cattle ranch before he died, and he couldn't sell me a cow if he wanted to, and his caretaker, the guy who like lives on his property and takes care of everything, he is he's a butcher of elk. Like people, if you kill an elk somewhere in here, you can bring it to him and he'll butcher it for you. So he has an on-site butcher. But if he got caught selling me a cow, he's over. He's done. Like they're
Really?
just
Wow.
he's not allowed to do it. Like you have to have some sort of like regulatory agency come in and inspect where you're butchering them, what you're giving them, and it's like he can sell it to another distributor and they can sell it, but he can't sell me a half a cow or a full cow even if he wanted to. And
Wow.
it's so corrupt and it's so evil. And like he has good meat. Like I see what those cows are eating. They're eating hay and grass. Like they're total grass-fed beef. They're not like put into pens or anything like that. Like I would love to eat that meat. And I remember asking at one point before he dies, like, can you just sell me one under the table? And he's like, it's too risky. I just can't do it.
Wow. Well, when you think about how was it I want to say it was in the 80s, large tobacco companies started buying all of the large food companies. So it's no wonder. I mean, look at the tobacco industry's model. Like, you go all the way back to what was it, the 1963, 64, sometime in the mid 60s, the first Surgeon General's report about problems associated with smoking. And then before that, you had physicians advertising the, their
Yeah.
preferred cigarette that they used.
Buy Lucky
Um,
cigarettes. 6 out of
I
10
mean, it's
doctors
like
smoke Luckies.
no, right, exactly. Like no wonder the food industry has turned out the way it has because it's using the tobacco industry's model.
Yeah. And these industries are so powerful. Like I like RFK. I think his heart is in the right place and I really hope that he's able to make some changes, but like talk about just being surrounded by evil and captured industry, and like I think it's going to be really hard for him to actually do so. And these there's so much money on the line that like they could just kill him, you know.
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, I hope the man has great security like 24/7
Yeah.
because I mean, how many people have been knocked off by just big pharma, let alone big food and big tobacco and all these other industries. I mean, you hear about these stories of people dying these weird deaths, um, that they, I guess, are framed as like a suicide, but then the surviving family members and friends are like, well, he wasn't depressed, he wasn't suicidal, like, where did this come from? So all those kinds of suspicious things, they've happened so many times, they're not coincidental.
No, I completely agree. Like we kind of hooked up through Dr. Dean Lloyd, and he has his, we did a whole episode if people want to go back and listen. Like one of his best friends, he thinks was offed by some sort of you know
Right.
evil industry within the medical establishment. it's hard to argue that this happens. Like, you know it happens. Like, I mean, there's billions and billions of dollars on the line. I
That's
I
right.
I don't remember how much Pfizer made during COVID, but it was billions and billions
Oh,
of dollars.
billions. Yep.
Like, they really cleaned up during that, and, people get used to making money like that, and when you're used to making that kinda money, somebody steps in and goes, "Hey, we're gonna make it so, you're gonna get, cut 40% next year." There's a lot of families, there's a lot of people who are used to having that kind of money, and if you take it away, they're gonna fight back because
Right.
they're, used to being comfortable, and
Well, let's face it. I mean, for those people out there listening who thinks, and you can say whatever you want about me after I make this statement, but I stand by it and I firmly believe it. The pharmaceutical industry is not interested in us being healthy.
no.
Otherwise, they would have no customers. There's no money in healthy people, there's no money in dead people. So they need people who are alive, but they need their products. And especially for the publicly traded companies, their fiduciary duty is to the
Yep,
stockholder,
make money.
not to public health. I mean, but yet you still have just millions of us, and I say us, Americans, who just willingly take the pharmaceutical industry's products, and they don't even question, well, hey, wait a minute, I'm taking this because I need to lose weight or because I have erectile dysfunction, but what is it doing to my heart, my liver, my kidneys, my brain,
Yep.
all of my major organs, that I have no idea, because those effects have not even been studied. And so you just go down the list of all these different, I mean, look at Ozempic right now.
Oh,
Like,
I
people are
know.
going crazy over that drug. And then you have all these reports coming out about it causing blindness now. Like, really, you don't have enough self-discipline to eat better and to exercise and to sleep properly and to cut out all these other vices you have to lose weight that way. You'd rather take the quick fix route that's going to work, but you may end up going blind over it. Well,
Yeah.
hello.
And
I think
probably
I'll
worse because we still don't know what the long-term effects of that stuff is gonna be.
no
Like, I think
clue.
it's gonna
We
kill
have
a
no clue.
lot of people, right? And it sucks. Like, there are a lot of people out there that are kind of in bad situations, like where I'm at. Like, doctors, a lot of times, depending on what doctor they are, they just wanna cut on you. They just wanna do surgery because that's where they make their money.
Exactly.
And so, like, when I got hurt, my hand was destroyed, and they ended up, like, taking out a bunch of the muscle and a bunch of the tendon, like, it ended up being like this, essentially like a claw before I
Mm.
had my amputation, and nobody briefed me on phantom limb pain before I got the amputation. Like, I was in pain before it, like, it was hurting like hell, but it got way worse after. Oh, here goes my dog, sorry about that, but he'll be out of here in a second. It got way worse after the amputation, and it puts me in a spot where, like, I'm on a lot of medications. I don't think I'm taking anything that, I don't know what it's doing to me. I don't know what it's doing to my insides. I don't know what it's doing to my brain. We'll talk about some cognitive issues here in a minute, but it's one of these deals where, like, if I don't take them, my life just gets progressively worse because of the pain that I'm in. And I haven't been able to find any non-medical, prescription medication that is able to, like, combat the pain. And it's really a bummer because, like, I know a lot of amputees and I ask every one of them, like, do you have phantom limb pain? And they're like, every once in a while I get like a tingle and for me, it's like my hand is like this all the time. I can't stretch it because it's not there. And I have this, like, electrical tingling, like, just gnarly pain all the time. And luckily, like, I've been able to find some medications that do help, but it's still bad every day. I don't sleep well most of the time. Like, every once in a while I'll have a good night of sleep, but for the most part I'm like struggling to sleep every night. And you know, a lot of people take medications that they don't need to take, but then there are people that kind of need to take stuff. And you have to wonder, like, what it's doing to you, what it's, is and then you have this, like, trade-off, right? Like, okay, I know that these things are doing permanent damage to my body. The human body is not designed to have things in it besides food and water, essentially, right?
Exactly.
And you have this trade-off where it's like, do I live with pain or do I, take this pain and like affect the rest of my life? And who knows what it's going to be like 40 years, 50 years from now if I'm, capable of living that long. And, you know, I've had like, I got electrocuted by 14,400 volts working on power lines. It went across my body, through my brain, and, like, I've got your website opened right now. It says, "Don't accept cognitive decline as being inevitable," and, like, it's been tough for me because my memory is jacked up. I'm seeing an Alzheimer's doctor right now about it, and there's just not much I've been able to do about it. So that was a long rant again about a lot of
Yeah.
different stuff with no question attached to it. Um,
No, I
what do you think about these medications that like people? What would you recommend someone in my position do? How about that?
well, we we can. I mean, if you want to go a little bit promotional for a minute, we
Yeah,
could jump right into daily brain care because
absolutely.
I mean, obviously I knew a little bit about your story, but I didn't know about your ongoing pain issue. That was something I was not aware of. But
Yeah, it sucks, man.
they, no, I can imagine, and I certainly, I mean, for people like yourself that's had such a trauma, that's clearly a different issue than just your typical American going through the motions,
Yeah.
for years and decades, whatever, and then you basically create this system of dysfunction within yourself. I'm not talking, I'm not. When I made that comment about medication, I certainly wasn't talking about someone like yourself who's
No,
gone through
I
such a
understand that completely. Yeah.
horrendous trauma. But daily brain care, I mean, that really is where my research career took off and took an entirely different path from anything that I expected from what I was interested in nutrition in terms of, looking at how nutrition affects the whole person and then using certain dietary supplements to let's say fill in the gaps. But I met a gentleman by the name of Dr. Reg McDaniel about 20 years ago who introduced me to the concept of using aloe vera and specifically the polysaccharides from aloe vera for literally every cell in the body. And up to meeting Reg, I really didn't have I had no appreciation for what he was telling me initially, but I'm the kind of person, again, being this sort of chameleon that I mentioned that I've always been, and also being like an open-minded person. Like you meet a lot of people in life, they're, very skeptical, they're always closed-minded, they have no interest in hearing somebody's story or somebody's perspective. I'm the total opposite of that. So Reg is telling me about his experiences up to that point, which was about 20 years. So he's now been at it for like 40. And it was just blowing me away. Like he was talking about these polysaccharides in aloe vera that I had no clue about. Like,
Mhm.
you hear aloe vera, what's the first thing you think of? You think
Sunburn.
of using the gel on a sunburn, right? Like that's the common answer that most people would have for what's aloe vera good for. But it's so much more than that. And it's actually so much more when you take it orally as opposed to just putting it on your skin for a sunburn or a cut or a wound or something. And so, what the study of, let's call it glycobiology or glycomics, the study of sugars, shows us is that every cell in the body needs these particular sugars. Every time our organelles in every cell, again, this is from head to toe, every cell in the body, they need these sugars. And when you provide them, and there's something very special and dynamic about the ones from aloe vera, and I can't quite put my hand around that. It's probably something actually beyond biochemistry. It's probably something on the resonant frequency level.
Oh,
And I'm
cool.
hoping at some point in my career I will get to how I'll have the opportunity to actually prove that. Right now, it's just kind of a working hypothesis, but there's something very, very special about this plant. And when you take out the gel is about 99.5% water. When you take all that water out, And now you're left with the nutrients that are contained in that gel. It's actually way beyond more than just polysaccharides. It's got amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, elements, you name it. There are probably thousands, at least hundreds, if not thousands, of different nutrients and phytonutrients in aloe vera. But the polysaccharides, which we refer to as acetylated polymannose, ace mannan, allopolysaccharide, there are several different synonyms for this particular nutrient. These things are so dense, they are coated, and actually everything is, it's not just the polysaccharides, but they are coated with so much more information than every amino acid, every fatty acid, certainly vitamins and minerals. Those are very simple structures. These things are like 5D complexes. You cannot even draw them on a piece of paper. They are literally that dense in their structure. And when you provide this information that the genes interpret, again, this is everything, not just these polysaccharides, but that's how our cells function. The genes look at this information and then they instruct our cells in how to function. And so at that point, Reg was telling me about all these different, I mean, and he's documented in his office over 800 different, let's call them health challenges, not diseases or disorders, but things that people struggle with, especially from a conventional medical perspective where there's essentially no answer. And you put these polysaccharides into your system, and now it's like giving, I like to use the analogy of an old car. It's been sitting around, not, it still runs, but it
Mhm.
doesn't run well, not certainly like it was new. Maybe it's got water in the gas tank. It needs a tune up. It needs some things. You tune it up, you get the water out of the gas, you give it high test gasoline, and now your car's kind of running like a new one again. Same thing with our cells. You provide these polysaccharides to cells that are, unfortunately, as we age, they don't replicate. When we hit middle age and older, excuse me, they're not replicating like they were when we were a baby or even up through our teen and early adult years. And so now our cells are functioning again like they're supposed to. So why is it that these polysaccharides are so darn effective? It's because, again, of all this information that's coded within them that our genes interpret to then instruct our cells in how to function properly. So that is a long-winded explanation to say that it completely changed the course of not only my career, but my life, of being, having the opportunity to start researching why these polysaccharides do what they do. And so we were able to run two clinical trials in people with Alzheimer's disease and multiple sclerosis. Again, two conditions from a medical perspective that, especially in the case of Alzheimer's, offer little hope to anybody that's been diagnosed with this tragic disease.
Mhm.
But we showed just astounding effects beyond anything that we had expected. We were certainly optimistic based on Reg and his colleagues' earlier work, but through the opportunity of getting this money from a family that had had four family members die of Alzheimer's disease, they were hearing Reg give a lecture one time. This lady and her husband formed a relationship with Reg that ultimately led to them making a donation to research, that I just happened to be in the right place at the right time because Reg was not affiliated with any university or academic institution or research institution. And so he calls me up and says, John, we've got an opportunity to run this study. We just need to do it in people with Alzheimer's disease. And so I was very fascinated and very interested to extend what he had done up to that point. And excuse me, we ran this clinical trial, putting people on this particular dietary supplement. I call it this allopolysaccharide based supplement that we now call daily brain care. But we ended up showing in people with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease who were on average 79.9 years of age. They had to have been diagnosed with the disease for at least 1 year. We put them on the supplement for 12 months. We collected cognitive function data at baseline, 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. We drew their blood at baseline in 12 months because we didn't have as much money in the budget as we needed to have done those other three time points for the blood markers. But at 9 and 12 months, we showed clinically and statistically significant improvement in cognitive function according to the ADAS-Cog, which is the gold standard for assessing cognitive function, particularly in people with dementia. Nick, that's unheard of. There is nothing else out there in the scientific literature that shows this. You can look at certainly the 5 FDA approved drugs for dementia, they don't do squat. I mean, you're lucky if they will
Yeah.
delay decline for, a few months, but you'll continue falling off the cliff. You can compare that to any type of diet, any other type of dietary supplement, exercise, hyperbaric oxygen, red light therapy, acupuncture, sound therapy, music therapy. There's nothing else in the scientific literature that shows what our first paper we published from that study in 2013 shows. I was so excited at that point. That was, and it still is, the height of my scientific career. Unfortunately, I had to leave academics 7 years ago because as we were publishing this data, this information, and I was so excited. I mean, I was literally on cloud nine, as they say. I knew, I mean, in my heart, I knew in my soul, I knew that NIH, Alzheimer's Association, all these big groups were going to just, throw millions and millions of dollars at me. I knew it. I said, man, we're on to something so big. We're going to help millions of people, not just in America, but across the world. And I tried, before leaving academics, I tried 4 times to get more money to extend this research that, oh, by the way, again, just to remember, only was possible due to the generosity of this one family. 2 times with NIH, 2 times with Alzheimer's Association, I submitted applications to extend our research. I got that much in return.
Wow. Unfortunately, that's not surprising.
And that, I mean, I mean, and I don't like, I just actually had an email that I had to deal with about a skeptical person of our research. So I don't like being skeptical myself. But this is not skepticism when I tell you and your listeners that the people at NIH, and again, maybe it's changing because this was way before RFK took over, but
Mhm.
the people at NIH, certainly the people at Alzheimer's Association, he has nothing to do with Alzheimer's Association. These people are running around telling the world that they're interested in nutrition and being able to help people and do all these things for this tragic disease. They had the opportunity to help me extend this research and they didn't do it. They did not step up to the plate and do it. And so after the fourth try of wanting to get more research to keep, or to get more money to keep this research going, I said, you know what? I'm not banging my head against the wall, making it bleed for the next whatever time I have left, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I'm done. Like I was so, if for those of you who don't know, living in academics, you a lot of times you think of people at a university, you're in the ivory tower, you're in the bubble,
Mhm.
you're not in the real world. Like, oh no, you've got this ivory tower position where it's cake, it's so easy. That is nonsense. The work that I did at the University of Miami, especially the type of work I was doing in nutrition and dietary supplements, where I could count on maybe 2 hands colleagues doing similar work. Everybody else there is doing research on, of course, drugs, of course, genetics, of course, some biotech thing that they can license to, some company and make a lot of money. And that's exactly the reason why Alzheimer's Association and NIH were not interested in my research because they look at this and they say, well, this is a dietary supplement. What are we going to do with this? We
Yeah.
can't make millions or billions of dollars off of it. So I left all of that behind. I had to, I had no other choice. I was not going to continue just, again, banging my
Yeah.
head against the wall in the face of all of this resistance, skepticism, big pharma dominance, whatever you want to call it. And that's why I left academics to go into business to sell daily brain care based on all of that research in Alzheimer's and in MS because of the need of people like yourself. Again, I didn't even know that you had this pain and cognitive issue going, but the ability to help people with this polysaccharide complex has just been enormous. I mean, it's just, and the only thing that's stopping me at this point is basically marketing and advertising. It's
Mhm.
getting the word out to enough people to create a critical mass of users, essentially. I mean, I take this stuff, I've been on it for over a decade. My mother's been on it for, mom's been on it for probably 13 years. My children, when they turned 5 and 6 years of age, started taking it. So my wife takes it. So, I mean, literally, cradle to grave and all of us in between, we can benefit from these polysaccharides. Now, let me just tell you very quickly, I don't know how much more time we have, but
As much as you
at
want.
this at the cellular level, the reason why these things work, um, I mean, again, there's several, but the most important ones that we published are the following. Number one, they improve your overall immune system's functioning. We looked at something called the CD4 to CD8 ratio. That's your ratio of your helper cells to your cytotoxic cells. That's important for all of us, not just for people with Alzheimer's disease, especially as we age. We want that ratio to be optimal. So that was the first thing we showed. And the immune system, by the way, for those of you who don't know this, is not just your first line of defense against infection of bacteria or virus or fungus. It actually communicates with all of the other major organ systems. So it's kind of like your conductor of your symphony orchestra. It's helping to keep everything else in balance. And if your immune system is not functioning properly, you cannot possibly expect all of your other organ systems to be functioning the way they're supposed to. It's a very, very crucial uh, organ system to our entire body's functioning. So that's number one. Excuse me. Number two, we showed reductions in inflammation. So what does that mean? Well, chronic inflammation, I'm not talking about the acute type, like the type you had when you had your injury and you need that inflammation, you need those signals going out to the site of injury to repair that trauma. I'm talking about the chronic dysregulated type that just keeps going year after year after year after year. And that type of dysregulated inflammation is very related to all sorts of chronic disease. So we were able to lower that according to TNF alpha and VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. Those two proteins have commonly and historically been looked at in heart disease and cancer. Our paper was probably the first one that showed that in people with Alzheimer's disease. And then finally, we showed an increase in adult stem cell production. Remember, these were people on average 79.9 years of age. They didn't just have Alzheimer's, they had diabetes, depression, different forms of heart disease. So these were quite old, quite sick folks. We turned on their adult stem cell production process according to CD14 cells by just under 300% over that 12-month period.
Wow.
Again, Nick, these are unheard of findings. I mean, and this is why when I submitted that first paper after we wrote it up to the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, and I've had over 100, and I don't even know what my exact number is yet or now, it's over 180 publications, scientific peer reviewed publications. It was the only time in my career where the editor of the journal, the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, Dr. Perry, he called me up and he said, "Wow, Dr. Lewis, your paper is incredible. As soon as we get the reviews back from the reviewers, I'm going to recommend we publish your article immediately because it is such an important piece of work." That is the only time in my career that ever happened. But we published three other papers on that study. We published three papers from the multiple sclerosis study, and so that's seven articles that we published from those two clinical trials that just show a wide variety of incredible effects of these polysaccharides that you're not getting from your diet. I mean, I don't know about you, no one eats aloe vera.
No.
To my knowledge. We have aloe vera growing in our backyard in Miami, but I don't go out there every day and, snip off a leaf and suck down the gel. Number one, it tastes like hell.
Yeah.
You couldn't stand the taste of it. And number two, you'd have to drink gallons and gallons of it because, again, as I said, it's
All water.
99% water to be able to get enough of the polysaccharide concentration into an amount that you would have a therapeutic benefit or effect from. So we've taken all of that hard work out of it. You don't need to grow your own aloe vera. Just take a product like Daily Brain Care or something else out there, if you will. But again, I've been able to help people with all sorts of things. So circling this conversation
Yeah.
all the way back to you, I mean, you're talking about having pain issues. We've helped people with all sorts of different pain, neuropathic pain issues that otherwise they were taking medications or trying acupuncture or other things and really didn't have much success. But when you can knock down that inflammation and when you can have that adult stem cell production process turned on correctly and effectively, that's where you can start really having the rubber hit the road. And I've been, this has been my mission now for many, many years of spreading the word about these polysaccharides and how beneficial they are, and yet how few people actually know about it. I mean, it's for me, it's not like, there's so many people out there in the nutrition realm, if you will, talking about protein. I mean, protein to me is, oh my God, like, don't talk to me about protein. I have no interest in talking about protein. There are 1 billion people out there talking about protein. I don't care about protein. We all get plenty of protein.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're eating meat all the time, or if you're eating a lot of plants or somewhere in between, you're getting plenty of protein. The average American is not protein deficient. Let's stop this craziness about protein, please, for just 5 minutes. Or, so many people out there talking about vitamin D or calcium or magnesium, all those things. There are hundreds, thousands, million, maybe even millions of people talking about, those more common things. These polysaccharides, these carbohydrates are so special and so unique, and hardly anybody, unless you're already a customer of mine or you've heard me lecture or you've heard an interview like this, you already know from the experiences that I've had and what Dr. McDaniel's had and others, those of us who have been lucky enough who have somehow gotten into this little path. But it is such an incredible opportunity. And I also want to, this is also a good point to just share with your listeners that I'm not talking about treating disease with nutrition here, because in respect for the laws and the way it works in the United States, the FTC, the FDA, you cannot say that nutrition is used to treat disease. That's the realm of big pharma. What I'm referring to in the nutritional model, again, is taking these key nutrients and lots of others, of course, oxygen being our first nutrient, water being our second, and then all these other vitamins, minerals, and other things that we need. But when you provide these to the cells to allow the body to repair, restore, and heal itself, that is a totally different model from the pharmacological model of taking a synthetic material, altering a metabolic pathway to treat a symptom, in your case, like a pain condition, and then hopefully getting the desired benefit of that. But then you have all of the side effects from that where you alter that enzyme or you alter that pathway, and that's what causes all of the side effects. With nutrition, that's not the case. You're enabling your physiology. You're not altering anything. You're enabling it the way it's supposed to work. And so that's the difference between these two. So please, no one leave this conversation and say, well, Lewis said you're using nutrition to treat disease. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we are providing, in this case, these amazing polysaccharides with the opportunity for the cells to utilize that information and start functioning the way they're supposed to be, to basically restore itself to homeostasis, a completely different model. But if you look at, I mean, so many different conditions, literally A to Z. And of course, again, I'm trying to be careful with my language here because, again, I don't want anybody to make the leap to, again, say that I'm talking about treating disease. But literally anything that you can think of that's killing the average American today, we have had success in supporting people in reversing those conditions with these polysaccharides. And I'll leave it at that because people can fill in the blanks. Again, I don't want to go down this path of, again, people alluding to me that, oh, well, Lewis said you could use this to treat,
Yeah.
heart disease, cancer, diabetes, whatever. I'm not saying that. So that's up to you to decide. In terms of, you read the research, I can share with, I mean, you said you've got our website
Yep.
pulled up. You can read sort of, summaries of our research, but I can share the articles with you. Heck, I'd be happy to send you a sample of daily brain care for you to try it for yourself, just to see if it can help you get a grip on this pain issue that you have. And then, of course, the cognitive issue, that's another story as well. But it's just incredible what the body can do if you provide it with the right raw materials to help it do what it's supposed to do.
That'd be great. I was actually thinking, like, while you were talking, I'm gonna try this stuff for 3, 6 months, and then I probably have you back on again and kind of, like, go over, how it's helped, if it, you know what I mean? And so I
That
think
would be
that'd be
great.
great, you know? That's exciting, man. I've always been under the impression that, like, everything we need to be healthy and live a healthy life exists on this planet in one form or another. It's just up to us to find it and figure out how to utilize it. And
That's
like
right.
I wouldn't be surprised if the natives figured out how to extract this stuff at some point, thousands and thousands of years ago. Like they figure out some crazy stuff. You're like, I got a staph infection a couple months ago from my dog bit me, and he's an asshole. And, like, you think, like, it was on my thumb, and it's like, I was, like, scared I was gonna lose my thumb. The thing
Oh, wow.
swelled up and blew up, and I got a staph infection actually when I was living on Maui. Like, I put my foot through a roof doing roofing work, and then I knocked it on a piece of coral, just, like, being an idiot. and my leg
Oof,
swelled up and it got gnarly, and it's like they the natives figured out how to live through that because there's
that's
no
right.
way they could have lived their lives as hard as they were back thousands of years ago and just had a little scratch that knocked onto a rock and then all of a sudden you're going to lose your leg. Like they figured this stuff
That's
out
right.
somehow.
That's
Like,
right.
and the natives in North America, their history was erased and a lot of it could possibly be for reasons like this is that, they
That's
didn't
right.
want people to know how to be healthy and how to utilize different plants because there's not, like you said, there's not billions of dollars to be made on aloe vera. There's just,
That's right.
it doesn't exist. So man, that's awesome. Like, my grandmother just died recently from she had Alzheimer's and dementia pretty bad.
Mm,
And like you said, it's such a debilitating disease and it's so like sad to watch somebody that you know and love just deteriorate and be gone, like
it's
she
awful.
was
I'm sorry for that.
yeah, and I'm not the only person that's gone through it. My mother's is really had it the hardest out of anybody, it was really tough on her and she'll never be the same after watching that and
Right.
it's kind of easy to see why and I'm very excited to try this stuff. So it'd be great if, like I said, if I'll try this stuff for a couple months and then we'll bring you back on and kind of do a debrief. And I wish we would have gotten to this earlier in the episode. This is great stuff.
Yes.
We kind of had to do the feel out process and get to know each other. But man, that is so cool. I can't imagine how dejecting it must have been to be like you said, be on cloud nine. You found something, like you did it, and then to have the medical establishment just push you aside like you don't exist. Like that is gotta be just
So
so hard.
frustrating.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, when I was trying to race professional motocross, like it was so hard to give it up and not make it and not do it. And at the time, like, I knew that I had the talent and the skill to do it. I just didn't have the money, you know? And that's a different place completely to be in than, like, what you went through, and God, I I can't imagine the sleepless nights and the frustration and just the absolute disgust that you must have with the medical establishment when you know something that they should be looking into heavily, and like you said, they should be funding your research. When you show results like that, everybody should be bending over backwards to give you money to do this research because like you said, like, I'm not the only person in the world that's watched a loved one go through stuff like this. It happens to a lot of people, and if we could get rid my god, that would just be incredible, and, ugh. Just monsters, Like, I've been through it with a lot of really bad doctors since I got hurt, and, like, when I was racing dirt bikes, I got hurt a lot, and I would go to the doctor, and they'd set the bone, and they'd put you in a cast, and you'd be better again, or they'd do a knee surgery or whatever it was, so, like, when I got hurt, I was I had this thought that, like, doctors are heroes. They're, you know, the best people in the world and they're going to fix me up. And like I never even thought for a second that I was going to lose my hand when I got hurt because I was so used to just being put back together by doctors that like as I'm laying in the ambulance and going through all this like it never went through my mind that I was going to lose my hands, let alone like I should have died, going through something
Right,
like
right.
that. And oh, man, like, to go through as many bad doctors as I have and to, like, have that realization of, like, these are normal people, they're fallible, they're, a lot of times bought off by different pharmaceutical
That's right.
companies, like, my first doctor here in Idaho was really bad, and it took me, like, 2 years to figure out that he was really bad, maybe even 3,
Wow.
and I finally, like, one day, I was sitting in his office, and he said something to me, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this guy's an idiot." Like, it kind of, like, all hit me, and I had this, like, sinking feeling in my stomach. It's like, I've been going through the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and the guy that I trust the most to put me back together is an idiot. And it was just so hard. And
Wow.
then, like, my family helped me out, and we did a bunch of research, and we found this doctor in the valley that he was like the head of the amputee clinic at a VA in somewhere back east for like 30 years. We're like, great, we found it. Like this guy is going to be really good. He's going to help. Like he's going to know exactly what's going on. And then that guy was also an idiot. Like,
God.
my mother found this medication called low dose naltrexone. She has autoimmune issues and it helped her a lot. And she started looking into this medication and it has zero side effects. It's one of these things kind of like an ivermectin where there's just no side
Right.
effects to it whatsoever. And she looked into the research and it's like, "Oh, look, there's like good research that this helps with pain." And we come to this new doctor and was like, "I'd like to try this." And he goes, "Oh, I've never heard of it. Sounds like a placebo. I don't prescribe placebo."
Wow.
And it was just like, "Oh my god." And at that
Wow.
time, like, I wasn't on any medications. I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything. This is when I was, like, losing a ton of weight and just, like, dying, essentially. And this guy refused to put me on any medications, and all he wanted to do was send me to a surgeon to have a spinal cord stimulator installed. I went through and did that. I did like a trial. The trial worked great. And then I had the permanent one put in and it didn't work. And then they go, "Oh, well, we'll just replace it and we'll do it, this new paddle things." And they just destroyed my neck. So now my neck's, destroyed from the rest of my life. And after like getting out of that doctor's office and now I'm going to a nurse practitioner and I've had a lot better results with nurse practitioners than I have with doctors surprisingly because they're open-minded and
Right.
they don't have this god complex where like one of the things I learned relatively quickly after getting hurt that was like you call the doctor doctor. You don't just say, "Hey, how are you?" You say, "Hey doc, how are you?" Because you got to feed their ego, right? Like these are
Right.
ego-driven maniacs. One of the
Right.
funniest things, like, my financial advisor told me about doctors, he was like, "Some of the worst financial people in the world are doctors because they have
Yep.
this idea that they're so much smarter than everybody, that they can do everything alone, and they don't need anybody to invest their money for them. Like, they'll
Right.
do it themselves because 'cause I'm a doctor and I'm so smart."
That's right.
And,
Exactly.
these nurse practitioners have been great, and, like, at this point, my spinal cord stimulator doesn't work anymore. It's not on,
Mm.
and my hand is in a better spot than it's been in today in years because they started me on this low dose naltrexone, which was a big help. And then the nurse practitioner, I kind of, at one point I was like, what else can we do? Like I'm still having this pain and like what else can we do? And they wanted to put me on ketamine, which I was terrified of at first because like they had me on ketamine when I was in the burn unit and it was not a good time. Like being tied down to a
Imagine.
bed and hallucinating and just like it was a horrible experience and I was kind of scared to take it and they told me like this is oral, it's a different thing and like let's just try it. So I put a tab under my tongue at night before I go to sleep. I don't feel anything and it's helped with my pain and my cognitive and my like depression issues. And if
Wow.
I was to go like back in time, I would have never done this stupid spinal cord stimulator that
Right.
screwed
Right.
me up for life because I didn't need it. Like it doesn't work anyway. So like it's just so frustrating to like be in a position where all they want to do is cut on you because that's where they make their money. All they
That's
want to
right.
do is prescribe you bullshit that doesn't work because that's where they make their money.
That's
And
right.
one of the first like realizations I had in COVID was early on when everybody was heroes. All the doctors were heroes. I was like, this is not going to last because a lot of these doctors are not heroes. Like they're
That's
just
right.
bought and paid for. And I remember telling my family, I was like, this is not going to last very long. Like I remember there was a sign outside of our house that was like, "Thank you, heroes." And I was like, that sign's coming down real
Yeah.
quick,
Exactly. I'm sure you were too. I was skeptical of that whole thing from day one. Like
Yep.
my spidey sense was tingling immediately. I knew something was very off about all that nonsense about social distancing
Yep.
and masking. And then the next thing you know, they're trying to force us all to take these shots. I was like, man, this is bad, bad, bad from day one. I knew it was off.
Yep. I
I don't
did
know.
too. I've had
It's
enough
also been an
experience
interesting,
I've had enough experience with this, the whole medical industry that I again, like same with you. and I don't trust the government. So like it was right away.
Right.
I don't trust any of these people that are involved because they're either bought and paid for idiots or the government, which is kind of both, you know? Yeah.
Exactly.
It was really something. Well, hell, John, let's get you out of here. We've gone over 15 minutes and I don't want to keep you all day, but that's really cool, man. I'm excited to try this stuff and give
Definitely
updates
sit.
along the way. I'm going to have your website listed in the description of the podcast. So
Okay, great.
anybody that wants to go and buy some of this stuff, just click on the description. It'll take you to the website. And I'm gonna give some updates along the way. And like I said, we'll have you on again in like 3 to 6 months and kind of do a debrief on this. It's interesting. I'm going to my cognitive doctor this week. I haven't had like the brain scans or anything yet. Like we're still early on. They did some blood work on me and we're gonna go from there. So it'll be interesting to also go through that process while trying this out. And
Absolutely.
hopefully, if this works, I can let my doctor know about it and get more people going on stuff like this. Because if I don't know this doctor well yet. I've only had a couple appointments with her, but she seems to be open-minded and I like her so far. So fingers crossed,
Wonderful.
man. Let's do all we can to get people some help, and get your body to
Exactly.
heal itself rather than, some pharmaceutical company to mask the pain or mask the symptom because that's a lot of just what it does. It just masks things.
That's
Like
it. That's
I
all it's doing.
I take, different Medicaid. I take gabapentin every 8 hours and it doesn't get rid of the pain. It just masks it and it comes back again after 8 hours. You know what I mean?
That's
And
right.
to get something that could permanently do it would just be incredible for so many people. Like so many people in this country live in pain every day and they live
That's
in,
right.
cognitive decline and the brain, like, I'm under the impression that the human mind is the most valuable resource in the known universe, and we have to do everything we can to preserve it and
That's
to,
right.
amplify it. And your brain is so important. Your body goes at some point, your body is going to go, but the longer you can keep your brain healthy and you can stay sharp, the better. Like, trust me, I'm 39 years old and I find myself in a room a couple times a day not knowing why I'm there. You don't want to
Wow.
go through that. You don't want to go
No,
through that at 60. You don't want to go through it at 40. You don't want to go through it at 80. Like do anything you can to keep your brain sharp because as soon as it goes, you lose everything. You lose yourself, you lose it's frustrating. Your mood gets different. Like it's a terrible, terrible ailment to start losing your brain. So like I said, I'm excited to try this. I'm excited for people to hopefully try it too. And, you know,
well,
excited to, you know, try this out
my
and talk to you again here in a couple
well,
months.
my heart goes out to you, brother, for what you've been through. But I feel confident that daily brain care can give you a puncher's chance to help you get better. So let's get you started on it immediately.
Sounds good, John. It was a pleasure talking with you. We're going to call it here, and
My
we'll do
pleasure
this
as
again in a
well.
couple months and get an update going. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good one.